So this video is going to be about why I no longer practice intermittent fasting and what I do instead. Now, it's not true that I don't really practice intermittent fasting in the way that most people would consider intermittent fasting to be intermittent fasting. I practice time-restricted feeding. Now, what do I mean by that? I do not eat for 12 hours out of the day, and then I have three moderately sized meals, or one large meal and two small meals, throughout the day with no snacking in between meals. So some people would consider that time-restricted feeding, and other people might consider that intermittent fasting, although 12 hours is not really that much of a time period to not be eating, considering you're accounting for the time that you sleep, which should be like 8 or 9 hours of sleep, especially if you're exercising, maybe 10 hours of sleep. Okay, so that's not really that long that you're not eating. Okay, so as people might remember, I did a series of videos on Roy Walford, the guy that discovered the Cron diet in Biosphere 2. He was the doctor in Biosphere 2, and he's the one that discovered the Cron diet, which means caloric restriction with optimal nutrition. Keep in mind, when you see the word caloric restriction or calorie restriction, that does not mean starvation, okay? Does not mean the same thing. You are not restricting micronutrients. In fact, sometimes you might have to supplement, actually, pretty much every time you're going to have to supplement with micronutrients, amino acids, things like that, so that you're not dropping below the necessity of certain micronutrients, amino acids, fatty acids, etc. And that's why I encourage people to read Roy Walford's books. Okay, so you may have heard about caloric restriction and fasting diets and wondered why they're getting so much attention. Well, no, they're aren't they just other terms for a diet to lose weight? No, they are not. Caloric restriction or calorie restriction means reducing average daily caloric intake below what is typical or habitual without malnutrition or deprivation. Now keep that in mind. Without malnutrition or deprivation of essential nutrients. In a fasting diet, a person does not eat at all or severely limits intake during certain times of the day, week, or month. A practical effect of a fasting diet may be fewer calories because there is less time for regular eating. Now, what led me to make this video? I'd say about 3 months ago, I had asked Dr. Levine, Dr. Morgan Levine, if I should restrict protein like Dr. Walter Longo recommends. And she stated to me that she really doesn't know, and she's one of the few people that will actually tell someone, I don't know, because that's how a scientist answers. But what she did say is if I'm already practicing caloric restriction, if I'm restricting protein, that's probably not good. It's going to give me what are called limiting returns. I'm not going to get the benefits. I'm not going to get any additional benefits probably from restricting protein for a period of time. And to be honest, I feel like crap if I restrict protein. And I do practice a lot of exercise. I exercise quite a bit. So I'm one of the people that needs more protein. People that habitually exercise need more protein than those that don't. So that's why I wanted to make this video as an homage to Dr. Levine, and she was sweet enough to get back to me and sweet enough to admit that she didn't know and honest enough to admit that there would be limiting returns, most likely limiting returns that she didn't know exactly, but there probably would be limiting returns if I didn't if I did restrict protein for set amounts of time, as Walter Longo states to in the longevity diet. So these eating patterns are being studied as possible ways to maintain good health and live longer. They are not temporary weight loss plans. That's important to understand. These are lifestyles, not weight loss plans. Interest in their potential health and aging benefits stems from decades of research in a variety of animals, including worms, crabs, snails, fruit flies, and rodents. and primates, okay? I don't know why they're not mentioning primates. In many experiments, calorie-restricted feeding delayed the onset of age-related disorders and in some studies extended lifespan. Given these results in animals, researchers are studying if and how caloric restriction or a fasting diet affects health and lifespan in people. Many studies have shown that obese and overweight people who lose weight by dieting can improve their health, but scientists still have much to learn about how calorie restriction and fasting affect people who are not overweight, including older adults. They also don't know whether these eating patterns are safe or even doable in the long run. In short, there's not enough evidence to recommend any such eating regime to the public. I don't think that's exactly true, because there are a number of people that have practiced caloric restriction for decades now, and they seem to be doing better than the average, and I'll get into that later too. So what are the different forms of caloric restriction? Well, calorie restriction is a consistent pattern of reducing average caloric intake, while fasting regimes primarily focus on the frequency of eating. The fasting diet may or may not involve a restriction in the intake of calories during non-fasting times. There are a variety of fasting diets, sometimes called intermittent fasting. You may have read about time-restricted feeding. Meals are consumed within a limited number of hours, such as 6 to 8 hours each day, with nothing consumed after the other hours. Alternate day fasting, eating is restricted every other day, and no or minimal calories can be consumed on the days in between. The 5-2 eating pattern, is restricted for 5 straight days. This is the longevity diet, followed by 2 days of restricted. Eating is this is the reverse of the fasting mimicking diet from the longevity diet. Okay, so eating is unrestricted for 5 straight days and then restricted for 2 days. Periodic fasting, caloric intake is restricted for multiple consecutive days. This is like the fasting mimicking diet from the longevity diet. So it's restricted for multiple consecutive days, such as 5 days in a row, once a month, and unrestricted on all other days. Although that's not really true, because if you follow that's not exactly like the longevity diet, because the longevity diet has you focus on food quality and not overeating, of course. So what's the evidence for animal studies? More animal research has been done on caloric restriction than on fasting. In some experiments, calorie restriction is also a form of fasting, because the lab animals consume all their daily allotted food within hours and go many more hours without food. In these studies, when rodents and other animals were given 10% to 40% fewer calories than usual, but provided with all necessary nutrients, many showed extension of lifespan and reduced rates of several diseases, especially cancers. But some studies did not show this benefit, and in some mouse strains, caloric restriction actually shortened lifespan rather than extending it. In nematode worms, a fasting diet increased lifespan by 40%. A study with fruit flies found that caloric restriction but not intermittent fasting was associated with living longer, so keep that in mind. Calorie restriction but not intermittent fasting was associated with living longer in fruit flies. One study of male mice found that lifelong alternate day fasting increased longevity, mainly by delaying cancer recurrence. So this is it seems to be that it's just from reducing calories, okay? 2 National Institute on Aging supported studies in rhesus monkeys sought to find out whether the benefits of calorie restriction are seen in longer-lived species. In both studies, the monkeys were kept on a calorie restriction diet, 30% fewer calories than for monkeys in the control groups, for more than 20 years. Although there were differences between the 2 studies, including monkey breed and type of food, both provided evidence that calorie restriction reduced the incidence of age-related disease. So keep that in mind. Calorie restriction reduced the rate of the incidence of age-related disease, or age-related conditions such as cancer, heart disease, and diabetes. One study found an extension of lifespan while the other did not. Many of the monkeys are still alive, so the full impact of the calorie restriction on the maximum lifespan has yet to be determined. What's the evidence for human studies of calorie restriction? Some study results suggest that calorie restriction may have health benefits for humans, but more research is needed before we understand the long-term effects. There are no data in humans on the relationship between calorie restriction and longevity. Some people have voluntarily practiced an extreme degree of calorie restriction over many years in the belief that it will extend lifespan or preserve health. Studies on these individuals have found, so keep this in mind, study on individuals who have voluntarily restricted calories have found markedly low levels of risk factors for cardiovascular disease and diabetes. The studies have also found many other physiological effects whose long-term benefits and risks are uncertain, as well as reduction in sexual interest and the ability to maintain body temperature in cold environments. So they're more susceptible to cold and they're less horny, basically. These people generally consume a variety of nutritional supplements, which limits knowing which effects are due to caloric restriction versus other factors. To conduct a more vigorous study of calorie restriction in humans, National Institute on Aging supported a pioneering clinical trial called Comprehensive Assessment of Long-Term Effects of Reducing Intake of Energy or Calorie. In Calorie, 218 young and middle-aged normal weight or moderately overweight adults were randomly divided into two groups. People in the experimental group were told to follow a calorie restriction diet for 2 years, while those in the control group followed their usual diet. The study was designed to have participants in the experimental group eat 25% fewer calories per day than they had regularly consumed before the study. Although they did not meet this target, they reduced their caloric intake by 12% and maintained on average a 10% loss in body weight over 2 years. A follow-up study 2 years later, after the intervention ended, found that participants had sustained much of this weight loss. It's important to note that caloric restriction regimes are not starvation diets. Again, these are not starvation diets. The weight loss achieved with calorie restriction in the calorie trial resulted in body weights within the normal range, the normal or overweight range, compared to participants in the control group. Those in the calorie restriction group had reduced risk factors, lower blood pressure, and lower cholesterol for age-related diseases such as diabetes, heart disease, and stroke. They also showed decreases in some inflammatory factors and thyroid hormones. There is some evidence that lower levels of these measures are associated with longer lifespan and diminished risk for age-related diseases. Moreover, in the calorie-restricted individuals, no adverse effects and some favorable ones were found on quality of life, mood, sexual function, and sleep. The calorie restriction intervention did cause slight declines in bone density, lean body mass, and aerobic capacity, the ability of the body to use oxygen during exercise. However, these declines were generally no more than expected based on participants' weight loss, and other short-term studies have found that combining physical activity with calorie restriction protects against losses of bone. So keep that in mind. Adding physical activity with calorie restriction protects against losses of bone, muscle mass, and aerobic capacity. So if you exercise and restrict calories, you're not going to have these losses in bone mass, muscle mass, and aerobic capacity. Some calorie participants also experienced brief episodes of anemia, diminished number of circulating red blood cells that carry oxygen through the body. Overall, these findings indicate that while the degree of calorie restriction... Now, what's funny is what you have to understand, what should be looked at is were these people supplementing with folic acid, B12, iron, etc. There are ways to handle this, and the thing is, probably what they needed to do is take in more folic acid and more B12 to help make more red blood cells. Overall, these findings indicate that while the degree of calorie restriction in calorie is safe for normal weight or moderately obese people, clinical monitoring is recommended. But keep in mind, that was only a 12% reduction and you got those health benefits. What's the evidence from human studies on fasting? Most research to date has focused on the weight loss aspect of fasting, primarily in obese people. Observational studies have been conducted, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so in an observational study, the investigator does not determine the treatment to offer, does not render. Okay, for example, one observational study compared people who routinely fasted as part of a religious practice or for another reason to those who did not fast. It found that those who routinely fasted were less likely to have clogged arteries or coronary artery disease. However, the study did not control for other factors. So they could just be eating healthier diets. Okay, how does calorie restriction or fasting work? After decades of research, scientists still don't know why calorie restriction extends lifespan and delays age-related diseases in laboratory animals. Do these results come from consuming fewer calories or eating within a certain time frame? Most likely they come from consuming fewer calories. And you'll see this because that's what it seems to be about. Are the results affected by the diet's mix of nutrients? That's also very, if you notice, they kept stating that you can't restrict the nutrients to the point where you're depriving the person of micronutrients, amino acids, fatty acids, etc. Several studies have focused on what occurs inside the body when calorie intake is restricted. In laboratory animals, calorie restriction affects many processes that have been proposed to regulate the rate of aging. These include inflammation, sugar metabolism, maintenance of protein structures, the capacity to provide energy for cellular processes, and modifications to DNA. Another process that is affected by calorie restriction is oxidative stress, which is the production of toxic byproducts by oxygen metabolism that can damage cells and tissues as well as DNA. Several of these processes were similarly affected by caloric restriction in the human calorie trial. However, we do not yet know which factors are responsible for calorie restriction's effects on aging or whether other factors contribute. Okay, research supported by the National Institute on Aging has also focused on the effects of intermittent fasting. During fasting, the body uses up glucose and glycogen. This is what people need to understand with this. One of the oldest fasting mimicking diets, we're going to talk about fasting mimicking diets, is the ketogenic diet. Okay, the ketogenic diet was created to control seizures in children by a diabetologist/endocrinologist from Johns Hopkins University that realized that fasting helped to control seizures in people that were medication resistant. Okay. Now, before I continue, I want to remind people I'm not a doctor, I'm not a physician, I'm not an MD, I'm not a DO, I'm not an RN, I'm not an LPN, I'm not a CPN, I'm not a chiropractor, I'm not a nutritionist, not a dietitian, nothing like that. So this video does not constitute medical advice. But essentially, the ketogenic diet is a fasting mimicking diet that restricts one macronutrient, and that's carbohydrate, which causes the body to create ketones. Well, fasting causes you to create ketones too. So what had happened was this diabetologist/endocrinologist created this fasting mimicking diet, the ketogenic diet, which was a high-fat, moderate protein, low carbohydrate diet, which caused ketone bodies to form, just as in fasting, and they found that it helped to control seizures. Now, as you will remember from my coverage of the Eco-Atkins diet, there are ketogenic or near ketogenic diets that control carbohydrate intake that show many of the same benefits and more, because not only do they help to reduce body mass, they help to reduce fatty deposits on the body, but they also retain muscle mass better, and they also reduce some of the side effects and reduce the clogging of the arteries, which fatty deposits in the arteries is one of the problems with the traditional ketogenic diet. So ketones also may inhibit the development of cancer because malignant cells cannot effectively obtain energy from ketones. So remember that. Cancer cannot effectively obtain energy from ketones, but healthy cells can. But too many ketones in the blood can have harmful effects. This is one of the reasons researchers want to understand more about how calorie restriction diets work before recommending them. Why the science is uncertain. Most of the relevant studies have been conducted in laboratory and animal models, from yeast to primates. These findings do not necessarily apply to humans. Most clinical trials with humans have been short, few weeks or months, conducted in overweight subjects and focused on weight loss rather than aging. The longest trial so far, Calorie, lasted 2 years, which isn't long enough to learn about the long-term effects of calorie restriction. These clinical trials have typically recruited adults age 60 or younger, so the results don't necessarily apply to children or people over 60. Okay, so a tremendous number of organic and chemical processes keep the body functioning. Researchers must sort out how these processes are affected under different dietary conditions. Humans are quite different from each other in terms of gender, size, age, genetics, environment, lifestyle, and other factors. An eating pattern that's found to help one person might not have the same effect on another. With animal studies, the researcher provides the food so knows how much has been eaten and when. This kind of reliable evidence is harder to obtain in human studies. Although new techniques can objectively measure overall caloric intake, it is still challenging to get accurate reports of diet information from individuals going about their daily lives. What's next in research? Most calorie restriction and fasting diet studies have been in younger people, but researchers are beginning to study older adults. A clinical trial conducted by the National Institute on Aging is testing the 5-2 diet, which is where you eat unrestricted for 5 days and then restrict for 2 days in obese people aged 55 to 70 with insulin resistance. This is a condition in which cells do not respond normally to the hormone insulin. Yada yada, I've gone over that before. People in the experimental group can eat at will for 5 days, and then for 2 consecutive days are restricted to 500 to 600 calories per day. The experiment is designed to find out how 8 weeks of the 5-2 diet compared to a regular diet affects insulin resistance and the brain chemicals that play a role in Alzheimer's disease. In the coming years, researchers will continue to explore many unresolved questions. What are the long-term benefits and risks of various eating patterns which are feasible as long-term practice? What specific biological effects of aging and disease are triggered by a particular eating pattern? If a specific way of eating is recommended, at what age? Is it the best to start, and is it safe to continue as you get older? Scientists are exploring many aspects of caloric restriction and fasting and their effects on people of all ages. Some are conducting clinical studies and trials. To learn more, if you are interested, go to clinicaltrials.gov. Should you try calorie restriction or fasting? There is insufficient evidence to recommend any of the caloric restrictions. So what should you really do instead? Well, eat a balanced diet with nutritious food. Engage in regular physical exercise. I would recommend not drinking alcohol. Don't smoke. Maintain an active social lifestyle. Get good sleep. Okay, so we're going to move on now. So healthy meal planning for older adults. Okay, older adults have unique nutrition needs. Not really. These are the nutrition needs that everybody should be focusing on, but they become more detrimental as you get older because you become more susceptible to environmental stressors. These are things that everybody should be looking forward. I mean, in my opinion, I'm not a dietitian, I'm not a nutritionist, I'm not a doctor. This isn't health advice, but keep in mind, these are things that everybody should be focusing on. It just so happens the elderly are more susceptible to having bad outcomes if they ignore these things more so than others. So enjoy a variety of foods from each food group to help reduce the risk of developing diseases such as high blood pressure, diabetes, and heart disease. Choose foods with little to no added sugar, saturated fat, and sodium. As I would like to point out, that one important caveat there is if you are following a whole food plant-based diet and you are already consuming very low sodium foods, I found out personally that I had to supplement with sodium and eat salted foods in order to get enough sodium. So to get enough now that's not true for everybody, so keep that in mind. To get enough protein throughout the day and maintain muscle mass, try adding seafood, dairy, or fortified soy products, along with beans, peas. Now, what's funny is I'm going to be making another video Okay, and it's going to cover about protein fortified pastas and lentils, beans, things like that. It's not necessary to rely on, say, soy products, seafood, or meat. In fact, there's research that shows that protein fortified pasta can stand in for meat. So remember, along with beans, peas, and lentils to your meals, learn more about protein and other important nutrients. Add sliced or chopped fruits and vegetables. I would stick with vegetables to meals. And snacks, look for pre-cut varieties if slicing and chopping are a challenge for you. Try foods fortified with B12, or just take a B12 supplement, or talk to your doctor about taking a B12 supplement. Learn more about key vitamins and minerals. Reduce sodium intake. Again, caveat there. Make sure that you're not overly reducing your sodium intake by seasoning foods with herbs and citrus such as lemon and juice. Drink plenty of water throughout the day to help stay hydrated and aid in the digestion of food and absorption of nutrients. Avoid sugary drinks. It can be hard for some people to follow through on smart food choices. Read about common roadblocks, blah, blah, blah. Okay, healthy lifestyle eating. Okay. This is based on the types of foods Americans typically consume. The main types of foods in this eating pattern include a variety of vegetables, fruits, whole grains, fat-free or low-fat dairy, seafood, poultry, and meat, as well as eggs, nuts, seeds, and soy products. Check out this sample menu to get started. Healthy Mediterranean style. This one contains more fruits and seafood and less dairy than the healthy U.S. style. Healthy vegetarian eating pattern. This pattern contains no meat, poultry, or seafood, but does contain fat-free or low-fat dairy compared with the healthy U.S. style eating pattern. It contains more soy products, eggs, beans, and peas, nuts and seeds, and whole grains. So let's take a look at the sample menu here. So this is a sample menu of what the government, is the USDA, what they're recommending that you eat. So this is not that difficult. So breakfast would be 1 ounce grains, 1/2 cup fruit, 1/2 cup dairy. A morning snack, you shouldn't really need all this food. Morning snack, 1 ounce grains, 1 cup fruit. Lunch, 2 ounces grains, 1 cup vegetables, 1/2 cup fruit, 1 cup dairy, 2.5 ounces of protein foods. Afternoon snack, 1/2 cup vegetables, 1/2 cup dairy, 2 ounces grains, 1 cup vegetable, 1 cup dairy, 3 ounces protein. So they're spacing out the meals more into mini meals. This is not, like what I would do is I would eat more food at one time. For example, my breakfast might be, for example, 8 ounces of grains, okay, like oatmeal. And, maybe after that, I'll have a 1/2 cup of pumpkin seeds. That'll be my breakfast. And I don't eat until lunch, and then I don't eat until dinner. So I eat more substantial meals. This is the mini meal type thing, more like the zone diet. And I'm actually kind of glad to see that the USDA is starting to implement these things. So again, this is healthy eating as you age. Know your food groups. Now, what I want to make sure people understand, again, this is healthy eating for everyone. Everyone, besides infants. Infants, of course, should be, pre-weaned infants should only be consuming breast milk if possible. Again, not a dietitian, not a nutritionist, not a physician, not an MD, not a DO, nothing like that. Not a chiropractor, not an RN, not an LPN, not a CPN, no. Okay, but the point is, pre-weaned infants, of course, should only be drinking mother's milk if possible. And these are things that everybody should be focusing on, not just senior citizens, but healthy eating as you age. Know your food groups. So, let's see here, vegetables. Vegetables come in a wide variety of colors, flavors, and textures. They contain vitamins and minerals, carbohydrates, and are an important source of fiber, the vegetable food. Now, what you'll notice is when you eat vegetables, if you're eating a lot of vegetables, they also contain quite a bit of protein. For example, Brussels sprouts contain quite a bit of protein. enough that if you're eating 6 cups of Brussels sprouts, you're getting, which is what I will eat that as a meal, you're getting a fairly balanced meal if you add a little bit of fat to it. You're getting about 25 grams of protein, okay, 25, 30 grams of protein in that. And that's decent. That's a decent amount of protein. And I know you're saying, oh, well, it's lacking this and that. Well, that's why you eat your whole grains, and that's why you eat your legumes and other meals, you know. But the vegetable food group contains dark green vegetables, red and orange vegetables, starchy vegetables, and legumes. Dark green vegetables include broccoli, collard greens, spinach, and kale. Red and orange vegetables include acorn squash, carrots, pumpkin, tomato, and sweet potato. Starchy vegetables include corn, green peas, and white potatoes. Other vegetables include eggplant, beets, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, celery, artichokes, green beans, onions, legumes including black beans, garbanzo beans, chickpeas, kidney beans, soybeans, and tofu. Lentils can also be counted in the protein foods group. So keep that in mind. You can count legumes as proteins, starches, and vegetables. Okay, they're a fairly balanced food. So fruits bring color, flavor, yada, yada, yada. Okay, older Americans generally do not eat enough fruit. Adding 1 fruit to your diet can have significant benefits for overall health. Fruits, like vegetables, contain carbohydrates and provide extra fiber that helps keep your digestive system moving. For even more fiber, eat fruits with skin. Just make sure you wash all fruits thoroughly before eating, although 100% fruit juice also counts. Now, this is 100% fruit juice most certainly should not count, but at least half of the fruits you eat should be whole fruits. When purchasing frozen, canned, or dried fruit, choose options that are lowest in added sugars. Obviously, try to stick to frozen and fresh fruits if at all possible. If you are going to eat canned fruit, make sure it's packed in water or its own juice, not in syrup. This is going over serving sizes. 1 small piece of fruit, 1/4 cup dried fruit. These are different servings. 1/8 of a medium cantaloupe, 1/2 cup, 100% orange juice. Again, juice is not really fruit because it lacks the fiber. 1/2 medium grapefruit, 1/2 cup grapes. So that's some serving ideas. Grains: any food made from wheat, rye, rice, oats, cornmeal, barley, or other cereal grain is a grain product. Now, what's funny is in this, they consider starchy vegetables to be a vegetable. I would throw starchy vegetables into this group, which is the grains and starches group, or what I would call the grains and starches group, but they're calling it the grains group. So this includes bread and pasta, breakfast cereal, grits, tortillas, even popcorn. Popcorn is a whole grain. I eat a lot of popcorn. I like popcorn. Grains, along with fruits, vegetables, and dairy, contain carbohydrate, the body's main source of energy. Read food labels to find grain choices that are low in saturated fat and added sugar. Be especially wary of options labeled low fat, which can be high in added sugar. At least half the grain foods you eat should be whole grains. Obviously, 100% of the grain foods you eat, according to Harvard, should be whole grains. So stick with 100% if you can. 1 ounce equivalents of grain equals 1 slice of bread, 1 small muffin, 1 cup breakfast cereal, flakes, rounds, or puffs, 1/2 cup cooked cereal, rice, or pasta, 3 cups popcorn, 1 small 6-inch corn or flour tortilla. Protein foods, one of my favorite groups of foods here. Okay, so choose lean, low-fat meats. Now remember, vegan protein sources like beans are truly lean, in the sense that they're mostly fat-free, like lentils are fat-free. Okay, keep in mind that you can also get protein from seafood, eggs, beans, nuts, seeds, and soy products. Protein from plant sources tends to be lower in saturated fat, contains no cholesterol, and provides fiber and other health-promoting nutrients. Plant sources of protein such as nuts and seeds have different nutritional value than plant-based meat alternatives, which can be heavily processed and high in sodium. So what they're saying is try to eat plant sources of protein such as nuts and seeds and legumes and steer clear from the heavily processed high sodium meat substitutes. Okay, that's the dietary. So these are the equivalents. 1/2 ounce of nuts, 1 tablespoon of peanut butter, 1/2 cup split pea, lentil, or other bean soup, 1/4 cup tofu, 1 egg, 2 tablespoons of hummus. Vegetables or protein. Are you confused about whether to count beans and peas as vegetables or protein foods? Consider these as vegetables if you regularly eat meat, poultry, and fish. Count them as proteins if you are vegetarian or vegan, or if you seldom eat meat, poultry, or fish. I would just count them as vegetables or protein. It really doesn't matter. I mean, you can count them however you want. If you do regularly eat meat or poultry or fish, they're going to enhance the amount of protein in your meals anyway. You're adding protein when you add them. Dairy. Consuming dairy helps older adults maintain strong bones. So 1 cup yogurt, 1 1/2 ounces hard cheese, 1/3 cup shredded cheese, 1 cup milk or calcium fortified soy beverage, 2 cups cottage cheese, 1 cup pudding made with milk. What I would like to point out here is so do greens, and so do a lot of vegetables that are rich in calcium. Dairy alternatives. For individuals who choose dairy alternatives, fortified soy milk and yogurt, which have calcium, vitamin A, and vitamin D added, are included as part of the dairy group and have nutritional content similar to dairy. Other plant-based milks, for example, almond, rice, coconut, oat, and hemp milks, may contain calcium but are not always fortified. Other foods. Some foods are not in any of the main food groups. These include oils, which can be eaten regularly as part of a healthy diet, as well as unhealthy fats, sugars, and calories from drinks, okay? Oils and solid fats. Oils are high in calories, but they are also an important source of nutrients like vitamin E. For older adults, the daily allowance of oils ranges from 5 to 8 teaspoons, depending on the activity level. Measuring your daily oils can be tricky. 1/2 avocado has 3 teaspoons of oil. 4 large ripe olives have 1/2 teaspoon of oil. 1 tablespoon of peanut butter has 2 teaspoons of oil. I personally have about a tablespoon of oil at every meal, olive oil or canola oil, unless I'm eating like half a cup of pumpkin seeds. You just have to maintain the right amount of calories and proper macronutrient balance. It's not that difficult. I think that greatly restricting the amount of fats you consume is not the greatest idea. It has never been for me. Added sugars. Limit your consumption of foods high in added sugars, which include sweetened cereals, high-processed snack foods such as cookies and cakes, dairy desserts, and many items marketed as low-fat. Beverages. Although many beverages can be part of a healthy eating pattern, some add calories without adding nutritional value. Beverages that are calorie-free, especially water, or contribute beneficial nutrients such as fat-free and low-fat milk, and 100% juice. Again, 100% juice is not a substitute for fruit or vegetables. I always say stick with vegetables. Should be the primary beverage you consume. Coffee and tea. Drinking coffee or tea barely provides any calories unless you add sugar or cream, which are not nutrient dense and should be consumed in moderation. Be cautious when ordering drinks from coffee shops because these are often loaded with extra sugars and fats. Sweetened beverages, examples these include sports drinks, fruit drinks, sodas, energy drinks, and sweetened waters. Most sweetened beverages do not contribute to meeting good food group goals. Okay, they don't, because they don't have anything in them. They're just sugar. Okay, alcohol is not a nutrient dense. It is not part of a healthy diet. Okay, alcohol is not part of a healthy diet. Keep that in mind. If you consume alcohol, do so in moderation, defined as 1 drink or less per day for women and 2 drinks or less per day for men. Calories from sugar, saturated fats, and drinks can add up very quickly, as these foods provide no nutritional benefit. They should only be consumed on occasion and in limited amounts. Okay, let's move on. Vitamins and minerals for older adults. Of course, taking a multivitamin is probably a good idea. I recommend people look up Dr. Bruce Ames. Again, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a MD, not a DO, not a chiropractor, not an RN, not an LPN, not a nurse practitioner, not any of that stuff, not a dietitian, not a nutritionist. This is not medical advice. Taking a multivitamin, probably a decent idea though. At least I know I take a multivitamin. Vitamins help your body grow and work the way it should. There are 13 essential vitamins, vitamins A, C, D, E, K, and the B vitamins, thiamine, riboflavin, niacin, pantothenic acid, biotin, B6, B12, and folate. Vitamins have different jobs to help keep the body working properly. Some vitamins help you resist infections and keep your nerves healthy, while others may help your body get energy from food or help your blood clot properly. By following the dietary guidelines, you will get enough of most of these vitamins from food. You will get enough of most. However, what you will find out, most people do not follow the dietary guidelines, number one, so they're not getting enough of most of these vitamins from food. And number two, when you look at the average American is lacking in so many of these micronutrients, it's ridiculous. Again, look up Dr. Bruce Ames and the triage theory of aging and disease. Like vitamins, minerals also help your body function. Minerals are elements that our bodies need to function that can be found on Earth and in foods. Some minerals like iodine and fluoride are only needed in very small quantities. Others, such as calcium, magnesium, and potassium, are needed in larger amounts. As with vitamins, if you eat a varied diet, you will probably get enough of most minerals. Again, a lot of Americans are lacking in a lot of minerals. How can I get the vitamins and minerals I need? It is usually better to get the nutrients you need from food rather than a pill. That's because nutrient-dense foods contain other things that are good for you, like fiber and phytonutrients. Okay, most older adults can get all of the nutrients they need from foods, but if you aren't sure, always talk to your doctor or registered dietitian to find out if you are missing any important vitamins or minerals. Your doctor or dietitian may recommend a vitamin or dietary supplement. It's important to be aware that some supplements can have side effects, such as increasing the risk of bleeding after an injury or changing your response to anesthesia during surgery. Supplements can also interact with some medicines in ways that might cause problems. For example, vitamin K can reduce the ability of the common blood thinner warfarin to prevent blood from clotting. If you do need to supplement your diet, your doctor or pharmacist can tell you what supplements and doses are safe for you. When looking for supplements to buy, you may feel overwhelmed by the number of choices at the pharmacy or grocery store. Look for a supplement that contains the vitamin or mineral you need without a lot of other unnecessary ingredients. Measurements for vitamins and minerals, milligrams. Okay, people know that already, or if you don't, you should learn. Sodium is another important mineral. Keep that in mind. Sodium is an important mineral. In most American diets, sodium primarily comes from salt. Sodium chloride. Whenever you add salt to your food, you're adding sodium, but the dietary guidelines show that most of the sodium we eat doesn't come from our salt shakers. It's added to many foods during processing. However, if you're following a whole food plant-based diet, you're probably not getting that much salt in your diet. How much sodium is okay? People 51 and older should reduce their sodium intake to 2,300 milligrams each day. I would say you should try to get a bare minimum of 1,500 to 3,000 milligrams a day. Okay, that's what I personally have to do. I know that for a fact. Okay. Preparing your own meals at home without using a lot of processed foods or salt will allow you to control how much sodium you get in your diet. Key vitamins and minerals for people over 51. Okay. These are key vitamins and minerals that you might want to look into getting. Okay. Vitamin A, food sources of vitamin A can be found in products such as eggs and milk. It can also be found in vegetables and fruits like carrots and mangoes. Vitamin B1, thiamine, food sources. You can find vitamin B1 in meat, especially pork and fish. It is also in whole grains and some fortified bread, cereals, and pastas. Men 55 plus. Men 55 and older should aim for 1.2 milligrams each day to 1.2, okay. Women age 51 plus, most women 51 plus should have 1.1 milligrams per day. Okay. Riboflavin, vitamin B2, you can find riboflavin in eggs and organ meats such as liver and kidneys, blah, blah, blah. You can also find it in green vegetables like asparagus and broccoli. Men 51 over 51 should get 1.3 milligrams. Women should be getting 1.1 milligrams. Vitamin B3 or niacin, men 51 should be getting 16 milligrams. Women should be getting 14 milligrams each day. B6, the richest sources of B6 include fish, beef liver, potatoes, and other starchy vegetables, and fruit other than citrus. Men 51 over 51 should be getting 1.7 milligrams, and women 1.5 milligrams. Vitamin B12. This is cobalamin. Men, okay, so you can get it from animal sources or fortified breakfast cereals or a B12 supplement. Men should be getting 2.4 micrograms. Women over 51 should be getting 2.4 micrograms. Vitamin C. Obviously, people know that I supplement with a lot of vitamin C. I take about 8 grams. In the winter, I take about 8 grams a day. In the summer months, I take about 6 grams a day. So it's saying men 51 over should be getting 75 milligrams a day. Women 51 over should be getting 90 milligrams a day. Calcium, men 51 plus should be getting 1,200 milligrams a day. Don't consume more than 2,000 milligrams each day. Women should be getting about 1,200. Again, don't consume over 2,000 milligrams a day. Vitamin D, men 50 over 51 should be getting 600 IUs a day, but not more than 4,000 IUs. If you are over age 70, you need at least 800 IUs a day, but not more than 4,000 IUs a day. Women that are over 51, again, should be getting, 600 IUs, but not more than 4,000, and same over 70, 800 IUs, but not more than 4,000 IUs. Vitamin E, men 50, this is found, of course, in nuts, seeds, stuff like that. Men over 51 should be getting, 15 milligrams each day. Women should be getting 15 milligrams each day. Folate, okay, this is found, of course, in leafy greens, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, spinach, oranges, etc. So what you want to shoot for with this is 400 micrograms a day if you're a man or a woman. So vitamin K can be found in spinach, kale, some fruits such as blueberries and figs. It can also be found in cheese, eggs, and different meats. Okay, so if you're a dude, you want to be getting 120 micrograms. If you're a chick, you want to be getting about 90 micrograms. Magnesium. So magnesium is found in a lot of vegetables, especially whole grains, legumes, and nuts, seeds, breakfast cereals, blah, blah, blah. Magnesium is also present in tap, mineral, or bottled drinking water. Men should be getting about 420 milligrams each day, and women should be getting about 320 milligrams each day. Potassium, okay. Men should be getting about 3,400 milligrams a day. Women should be getting about 2,600 milligrams a day. Sodium, preparing your own food, blah, 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 okay. So men should be getting about 2,300 milligrams each day. Women should be getting about 2,300 milligrams each day. Okay, let's move on here. Now remember, utilizing exercise along with caloric restriction will help keep your muscles healthy, keep your bones healthy, and keep you from, having muscle decreases and things of that nature. So most people tend to, so what are the 4 kinds of exercise? Endurance exercise. Endurance activities, often referred to as aerobic, increase your breathing and heart rates. These activities help keep you healthy, improve your fitness, and help you perform tasks you need to do every day. Endurance exercises improve your heart health, heart, lungs, and circulatory system. They can also delay and prevent many diseases that are common in older people, such as diabetes. Okay, brisk walking, yard work, dancing, yada yada. Okay, safety tips. Do a little activity such as easy walking before and after your endurance activities. Listen to your body. Endurance activities should not cause dizziness, chest pain, or pressure, or feeling like heartburn. Be sure to drink fluids when doing any activity that makes you sweat. If your doctor has told you to limit your fluids, be sure to check before increasing the amount of fluid, blah, blah, blah. If you are going to be exercising outdoors, be aware of your surroundings. Dress in layers so you can add or remove clothes as needed for hot and cold weather. To prevent injuries, use safety equipment such as a helmet when bicycling. Strength exercises. Okay, strength exercises increase the strength and size of your muscles. Okay, some people choose to use weights to help improve their strength. If you do, start by using light weights at first, then gradually add more. Other people use resistance bands, stretchy elastic bands that come in varying strengths. If you are a beginner, try exercising without the band or use a light band until you are comfortable. And believe it or not, a light weight goes a long way as long as you're following with the full range of motion and using a controlled method. As long as you're controlling the weight, you're going to get a pretty decent result, and you can usually use pretty light weights to get that decent result. Okay, so these are some strength exercises. Okay, so lifting weights, carrying groceries, gripping a tennis ball, overhead arm curl. I guess that means a tricep extension. Arm curls, wall push-ups. I guess that means bicep curls. Wall push-ups, lifting your body weight. So that means like push-ups, dips, etc. Using a resistance band. Safety tips. Don't hold your breath during strength exercises and breathe regularly. Holding your breath can cause something called the Valsalva maneuver, which will drop your blood pressure, can cause you to pass out. Breathe out as you lift or push, and breathe in as you relax. Talk with your doctor if you are unsure about doing a particular exercise. Balance exercises, these are very important. Okay, so balance exercises help prevent falls, as does strength exercises, so keep that in mind. Strengthening exercises will also help prevent falls. But balance exercises also help prevent falls. A common problem in older adults that can have serious consequences, which is falling. Many lower body strength exercises will improve your balance. It does mention that good. Balance exercises include Tai Chi, standing on one foot, the heel to toe walk, the balance walk. Safety tips: have a sturdy chair or person nearby to hold on to if you feel unsteady. Talk to your doctor if you are unsure about any particular exercise. Flexibility exercises can improve your flexibility. Moving more freely will make it easier for you to reach down to tie your shoes or look over your shoulder when you back your car out of the driveway. Flexibility exercises include back stretch exercises, inner thigh stretch, ankle stretch, the back leg stretch. Safety tips: stretch when your muscles are warmed up. Stretch after endurance or strength exercises. This is important to understand this. A lot of people like to stretch before exercise. The best time to stretch is actually after your regular exercise. Don't stretch so far that it hurts, but too many people do that. Always remember to breathe normally while stretching, while holding a stretch. Talk to your doctor if you are unsure about any particular exercise. Okay, let's move on here. So what I want to make sure people understand here, intermittent fasting doesn't seem to be any better than calorie restriction when it comes to weight loss. Okay. A study has investigated how intermittent fasting compares with calorie restriction to reduce weight. The results suggest that intermittent fasting is no better than calorie restriction for weight loss and is actually less effective in reducing body fat content. So keep that in mind. Intermittent fasting is less effective than reducing body fat content. The researchers say that including physical activity as part of an intermittent fasting diet could optimize weight loss. Intermittent fasting, or just simply doing exercise, you know what I mean? Intermittent fasting is an umbrella term for diets that restrict food intake for a certain time window. These diets can include fasting for several hours or even days at a time. Okay. Major challenge for researchers. I just wanted to make sure people understand that. It doesn't seem to be any better than regular caloric restriction. Counting calories beats fasting diets for weight loss. Okay, so intermittent fasting diets are all the rage, but new clinical trials results indicate they don't work any better than simply counting calories. People who simply cut their daily calories by 25% lost the most weight and fat tissue in 3 weeks of dieting, compared with two groups following different intermittent fasting regimes, an international team of researchers reported. There also was no difference between the groups when it came to heart health, metabolism, or gene expression related to fat genes, researchers found. In other words, no hidden benefits to fasting. Standard dieting may be more effective than intermittent fasting, because keep that in mind, standard dieting may be more effective than intermittent fasting. So that's simply counting calories, reducing calories is more effective than intermittent fasting in reducing body fat mass. Real quick, Roy Walford, I did a whole video series on this gentleman. He's the guy that discovered Cron. I would highly recommend people check out